Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Arlington Roe and the Francis Roe Center for Professional Growth. I'm Diane Smith, and I'm the director here at the Francis Roe Center, and we're very happy to welcome you and thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join us today. Cyber is one of those things that you are going to see in the news every day, hence the title we have here, Cyber, the only constant is change. And we're very happy to be welcoming two of our brokers today, Alec Mordino and Melvin Plowman. Alec is a professional liability broker here, and he is really going to get into cyber insights, some recent trends and claims, evolving coverages, and really why professional in cyber is important for your insureds. And then we're happy to have Melvin with us today. Melvin will be demoing our new Affinity quoting platform. So we've got a busy hour ahead. We ask that you please stay involved, utilize the chat feature for any questions, and then know that we will send a copy of this presentation to you all after the meeting today. With that, I'd like to welcome Alec. Alec, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Diane. As you just mentioned, my name is Alec Mordino, and I am a professional liability broker with Arlington Roe. I have been in the wholesale side of the industry for now over a decade. A large part of that has been focused on what we're talking about here today, and that is going to be cyber insurance. So we're going to do a quick run through of some of the recent trends that we've been seeing in cyber insurance. But before I dive into that, I wanted to take a brief second to let Melvin introduce himself.
Hey, good afternoon. This is Melvin Plowman. I'm a brokerage assistant here at Arlington Roe. I've been with the company for about a year. Prior to joining Arlington Roe, I had a 20-year career in multi-unit retail management. So just bringing the experience that I had with that career to this industry, and excited to share the demo with you guys today.
All right, well, we could go ahead and dive right into it. I had two topics that I really wanted to cover today when it comes to cyber insurance. The first one is going to be the current claim trends, where we're seeing that claim activity. There's a lot of words on a cyber policy and a lot of noise on a cyber policy. We frequently see over 20 insuring agreements on a cyber policy, so it gets really hard to just identify the exposure. So I think by focusing on the current claim trends and where we're seeing that current claim activity, we can best review cyber coverage to make sure you are finding the proper coverage for your client. And then after current claim trends, we're going to end today by comparing monoline coverage versus endorsement coverage. We're going to talk about some of those services that are with those monoline policies, and then we're going to talk about those package endorsements. There are some really good package endorsements out there, and we're going to cover those. And then there's some really bad package endorsements, and there's some things they are doing on these endorsements that make you think you have coverage for the client, but when it's all said and done, there's really no coverage built into the endorsement. So we'll go ahead and move on and dive right into our current claim trends. And where we are seeing 85% of claim activity right now is just divided up into two different areas. And those are areas that I am sure everyone on this call is familiar with. That is ransomware attacks, our number one area in terms of claim severity. And that is cybercrime, our rapidly growing area and our number one area in terms of claim frequency. So between these two areas, we are looking at about 85% of all claim activity. So even though I'm sure you guys have covered them in sessions in the past, I want to talk about the trends that are going on with each one of these areas so we have a deeper understanding of them. Ransomware attacks have been going on since about 2017. In 2017, we saw a widespread virus come out called the WannaCry virus. The WannaCry virus was essentially a mass email that just waited for people to click on the link. When people clicked on that link, the threat actors had no idea what they had encrypted. They had no idea if it was somebody's personal laptop or if it was the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. People would simply click on the link and it would encrypt to whatever it could get to. Because of that, the ransom demand was extremely small. The ransom demand on this attack was frequently around $500. The threat actors just wanted people to pay the ransom demand so they could make money to get their information back. This WannaCry virus was very successful in raising tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, which started this trend that we're in today into different ransomware attacks. The next phase in ransomware history really occurred around 2019 into 2020 when we started seeing the attacks starting to get a little bit more targeted. We had viruses coming out around this time like the Robinhood virus. And the Robinhood virus was not as targeted as we are seeing today, but it was targeted to the point where it was industry specific. So the Robinhood virus came out and was attacking just municipalities and going after municipalities, but it had no way of knowing how successful the attack was, how much information was encrypted, and would just ask for a much higher ransom demand, but still a standard ransom demand, and that ransom demand was around $70,000. The landmark case for the Robinhood virus was the city of Baltimore. Back in 2019, the city of Baltimore was hit with this Robinhood virus, and the virus was successful in getting all of the city's information. They had every single thing they had locked up. When they were encrypted, they were unable to even send out a water bill because they did not have people's addresses. So the city officials got together. They looked at this ransom demand of $70,000. They said, no way. We're not paying these threat actors $70,000. That is way too much money. We are going to rebuild our systems from scratch, and we're going to recreate everything. So they told the threat actors to go away, and the threat actors deleted that de-encryption key. In the city of Baltimore, started rebuilding their data. And it was several months. It was 6-9 months. They continued this process. And all said and done, it ended up costing the city $18 million to recreate all of that information and to get back up and running. So a lot of businesses learned from this and learned maybe paying $70,000 is not a terrible idea. But unfortunately, the threat actors also learned from this and learned there's a tremendous amount of value in that information that they are encrypting. And businesses need this information to function. And if they don't pay for the de-encryption key, it is going to cost them a lot more money. So now we moved into a time where it's no longer these widespread viruses, and now they are individual targeted attacks. Usually start with a widespread look for a vulnerability that they can exploit, and then they go in there and they break into your systems. And once they're in your systems, they look for your backups and they look for the tools you have. They assume you have things in place, whether it's EDR or MFA, and they work to get around that. And then it is not until they have all of your information, they have all of your servers, they have all of your backups that they are going to release the encryption. And along the way, these threat actors are going to be taking notes. These threat actors are going to be going through and they're going to be looking for things like your financial statements or even your insurance policies. They're going to look for your annual revenue and how much revenue you generate in a given month. And they're going to have all of this information ready before they encrypt you. And because of that, when they do release this encryption, they know exactly what the information they have is worth. And they are able to say, here is your ransom demand. We did not just pull a number out of thin air. The information is worth this much money because of X, Y, and Z reasons. And it makes for a much tougher negotiation when it comes to getting your information back and negotiating down these ransom demands.
So, Alec,
Mhm.
I have a quick question. This MFA, the multi-factor authentication, has become pretty commonplace. I mean, we see
Absolutely.
it every day, not only in our insurance industry, but across a lot of industries. Why hasn't this stopped some of these ransomware attacks?
Yeah, and that is a great question, and it is an extremely effective tool at trying to deter a lot of these attacks, but it has not been seamlessly stopping the attacks. Its MFA is a great tool, backup solutions, EDR is a great tool, but these threat actors are making a tremendous amount of money, and it is attracting new talent, if you will, to the industry that is just able to stay a step ahead of all of these controls. So I know you mentioned MFA. And it makes it more difficult for people to hack into your systems. However, they have figured out how to get onto your systems and they're able to steal that MFA token off of your system so they can bypass things like multi-factor authentication. So it is a great tool, but it is not necessarily a seamless tool. It's not a one-stop shop that is going to stop all of those cyber attacks.
I like how you say that, it's used to mitigate because it seems like there are more and more text this code, enter that code, do this, do that. It's just 2 or 3 steps instead of, when they say multi, they really mean multi. So I
Yeah,
know in industry, people are trying to keep up with this,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
it's just generating more and more steps, it seems like.
Absolutely. And I know those multi-factor authentication codes are quite annoying. I know I get annoyed every time I need to log into my Amazon or something like that, and it's texting me a code. Then I got to open up my email and it's emailing me a different code. And
Or your
it's
phone's
tough
in
to.
the other room on the charger. It's weird, right? It's just always stuff. Do I
Exactly.
have to run around the block now? What is it? What is it going to make me do?
Mhm.
And then you mentioned backup solutions. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, so backup solutions have been a great way to stop these ransomware attacks, but they have not been perfect at stopping these ransomware attacks because of 2 reasons. One, these threat actors are going to assume that you have backups, even if you have great backup procedures and you are keeping them offline or in a separate cloud. It is effective, but they are going to look for them. And if you do connect them to your system at some point in time, those backups are going to be vulnerable. And if you back up those backups, when your system was already compromised, that backup is going to be compromised as well. So there's a good chance that the backup actually is not going to work. Another major issue we see with backups is they fail on a pretty regular basis. You think everything is backed up properly and you believe you know how to execute that backup. However, when something actually does happen and you turn around and you try to use that backup, it just may not work or it may not work as effectively as you were hoping that it would work.
All right. Again, I encourage our agents and our Arlington Road associates utilize the chat feature. If you have questions coming up and you're thinking of it, Alec is your expert here today. Let's take advantage of his time. Alec, do we want to move on to what a ransomware attack can cost? A little more elaboration there. You've got a nice illustration.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we have up on the screen here is the average cost of a ransomware attack. And now this is the average cost of a ransomware attack for businesses of all sizes. So these average numbers actually break down for a business that is somewhere between 50 million and 100 million in revenue to get that average point. However, we are seeing even small businesses, if successfully hit with a ransomware attack, these are going to be six-figure claims, frequently over $250,000. And we can break down the cost as I have it right here on the screen. So the first number is just going to be the average cost of an incident, the average cost of paying for extremely expensive forensic investigators to come into your system and just to see what is going on, figure out what information was compromised, figure out what happened, how to get it fixed. All of those steps are going to cost an average of $170,000. The next number is the big number, and that's going to be the average cost of the ransomware itself. The average cost of the extortion payment is what is in there, and that is an average of $455,000. We talked about it on the last slide, and the reason that number is so high is because these threat actors know exactly what they have. They know what the information is worth, and they're able to ask for a pretty considerable amount of money to get that information back. The next number is the average cost of the business interruption is $643,000. To help understand this number and why this number is so large, I like to take a look at what we do here at Arlington Roe or at an insurance agency and how we would be impacted when it comes to one of these ransomware attacks. If we were hit with one of these attacks, we would show up to work. There would be a message on our screen that would say we were affected by ransomware. All of our information is encrypted. And it would make it pretty difficult to work because I do not have a paper copy of my expiration list. All of that is on our systems, so I wouldn't know what policies are expiring. I do not have a Rolodex with all of my clients' contacts sitting on my desk, so I would be unable to reach out to all of my clients. I live on my email all day, every day, and I would be unable to access my email. Here at Arlington Roe, we utilize IP phones. So if we were hit with a ransomware attack, they could take down our phone system, so I couldn't even make a phone call. If we were hit with a ransomware attack, there would be nothing that we could do. There would be no work that could be done until we settle that ransom attack, which is what makes that business income loss so expensive at an average cost of $643,000 there. One additional note I wanted to point out is specific to manufacturers. They've been targeted by these ransomware attacks recently, and they've been a pretty easy target, if you will, for the threat actors. And the reason they are chasing after these manufacturers is nowadays all of the manufacturing equipment is networked into their systems. So if a manufacturer is hit with one of these ransomware attacks, they are unable to even do their manufacturing until they have this attack resolved. So it just makes for very expensive attacks. The next number is the average cost to recovery. That's $282,000. That's getting your information de-encrypted. That's putting it all away. That is fixing any issues that you had, any vulnerabilities that led to the attack in the first place, and getting all of that resolved, bringing us to the grand total number of $1.55 million for the average cost of a ransomware attack. One thing that I wanted to point out is these are mostly first-party expenses. Everybody looks at cyber and calls cyber insurance cyber liability insurance, and people tend to think of the liability side of things first and worry about losing people's data and people turning around and suing them for that loss. We see very little paid out in terms of the liability side of things, and time again, these cyber losses are mostly first-party expenses, which we'll get to in a second. But when we look at package endorsements, you see a lot of them have a very high limit for the liability coverage, potentially $1 million worth of liability coverage. And then you look at where the claim activity is and where the claim activity breaks down. And there is very little coverage for ransomware, very little or no coverage for crimes. So
Alex, we have a
Yep.
question, and it's very interesting because our agents here in the Midwest, they're insuring a lot of small business or that middle market tier. And I think this is a good question. Can we drill down these average cost of a cyber attack into small business and middle market type accounts? A small business revenue under $1 million probably is not seeing these same averages. Wondering if we have more detailed stats or you could speak to that.
Yes, I do not have that stat handy right now. However, I will say these numbers for this average cost of a ransomware attack is from the Net Diligence report, which surveys all businesses from small businesses all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. And it includes all of those losses. And if you average out the average revenue size for this attack, it's somewhere between 50 million and 100 million. So when we get down to these small businesses under $1 million in gross revenue, yes, this attack is going to be a lot smaller. However, if they have everything encrypted and if they did successfully lose all of their information and they're unable to continue operations, I have not seen a single claim like that settled for less than $100,000, and they're frequently over $250,000 even for those small businesses. So still pretty significant numbers there.
very significant. And even in this illustration, even though it's large, it does show that snowball effect, right? We
Mhm.
see that. It's just one thing piled, a ripple effect. Maybe might be a better description. It's just one thing piles up after another, after another, after another. So whether small, large, anything in between, it's really going to handcuff the business and getting back up and running. All right.
Exactly.
Any other further thoughts here on this slide on the attack cost?
Yeah, that's a good breakdown of the average cost of a ransomware attack. Down at the bottom, I have notes from the net diligence report, which is where I get most of my statistics. And the main takeaway I wanted from this net diligence report is just that the majority of claim activity is happening to small businesses. So that third bullet right there says 54% of claims are with businesses less than 50 million in revenues. These small businesses absolutely are getting targeted because they are just looking for vulnerabilities. They are looking for a way into their system. And if they find a way into their system, they're not concerned if it is a small business or if it is a very significant business because they can get a nice ransom payment regardless of the size of the business.
All right, cybercrime, Alex.
Yeah, so right here we have the breakdown of the four different types of cybercrime and the definition as to what each one of these cybercrimes is and um, essentially what happens. I do not like to spend a tremendous amount of time on these definitions and worrying about these definitions. I like to lump all of cybercrime into just one category, and that is being tricked out of your money. There is a number of ways that it can happen. There are a number of different schemes, but if we memorize this list here, different carriers utilize different terms to describe this exposure. You're going to see some carriers that have 3 cybercrime insuring agreements, some that break it down into 5. It doesn't make for one coverage being better than the other. They're just defining it differently and covering it differently. So I like to look at just the blanket answer of being tricked out of your money. And right here in cybercrimes is where we are seeing all of the growth right now. The reason for this growth is an impact of artificial intelligence is now extremely easy to get your hands on, and it is making these attacks much more significant. We're now a long way from the days of the Nigerian prince and sending out those mass emails asking for your banking information. They are now very targeted and frequently involve a component of business email compromise where they're getting into your emails and they're seeing what is going on. Again, we're going to look at myself and what I do on a day-to-day basis because it makes for good examples. So if somebody had access to my email, they could go in there and they could utilize artificial intelligence to read my email in a matter of seconds, and they could figure out how I am sending money, how I am requesting money. And the artificial intelligence would have no trouble realizing that I send out binders, and with every binder that I send out is a copy of an invoice associated with it, and that's how I collect payment. If somebody learned that information and had access to my email, they could quickly set up a rule in my inbox so that every time I send out a binder, it does a delayed delivery on the binder and it doesn't go out for 6, 8 hours later. During that time period, they could get into my email, they could find that binder, and more importantly, that invoice. They could change the banking information and the payment instructions on that invoice and then send it out with fake information. And there is no reason why people would question that because it was the invoice that I sent out. It was the invoice requesting the correct amount of money for money that they owed. And it makes for a very effective attack just by utilizing artificial intelligence. Do we have any more
Yeah, you
questions?
have a question. Can you help come up with talking points on how to respond to people who say, we'll use Square for payments, or use, what is this, WIXX? I don't know, for my website design, so I don't need any of that. We've run into this a lot where they use a third party and think the third party is taking all the responsibility. It's a great question in the little square when you go to things. And so how do you address that?
Yes. Most people are using third-party vendors, and most of the time to gain access to those third-party piece of equipment. I'm sure Square has it built in, as most businesses have it built in. It actually says in the service agreement that they are taking responsibility for all of the issues. The person who collects the data is the person responsible for the data. So because they're the ones taking the credit card, if Square was to lose that credit card information, all Square needs to do is turn around and notify the client, notify the insured that there was a breach, and then it would be the insured's responsibility to take the attack from that point, because the insured was the one to trust their client's information with Square, which was proven to be a bad decision. As for how much exposure does a business have, we'll look at it from two sides where we're seeing the claim activity again. How much exposure do they have for ransomware attacks? I look at as how reliant are they on their business systems. If they lost everything that was digital, if they were unable to access everything that is digital, would they still be able to work? And the answer for most businesses is no. I think the only business that might still be able to operate after losing all of their information is a small one-man shop, maybe an electrician who all he works on is a personal laptop. And if he lost his laptop, he could turn around and just go get a new laptop. Maybe they won't have that much exposure to ransomware attacks. But as you break down most businesses, you find a pretty considerable amount of exposure. A great example of this would be restaurants. If a restaurant was hit with a ransomware attack, their POS system would go down. They wouldn't be able to operate. We saw this last year, but car dealerships, if their systems went down, they wouldn't have the software that they need to process the payment of the cards. If a hotel was to go down with a ransomware attack, they wouldn't be able to program any room keys and they wouldn't be able to operate. When we break it down, we really see that we are very reliant on our systems for day-to-day operations in most industries. And then that's going to wrap up my section on the areas of claim activity. One more time, I just wanted to reiterate, between those cyber crimes and those ransomware attacks, we are looking at 85% of claim activity. So it is a great place to focus, a great place to figure out exactly what your client's exposure is. So as we go to the next slide, this is going to outline the difference between a standalone policy and endorsement coverage. I am not going to go through line item by line item, but these are all items that we identified in various endorsement coverages that may or may not be offered. So it's all services that you're going to want in the event of a ransomware attack, and some endorsements offered them, but many did not. The big one, in my opinion, is going to be that first one, and that is going to be the breach coach. If you have a strong monoline policy and you get hit with a ransomware attack, you can pick up the phone. You have a 24/7 1-800 number that you can call and get support, and they come onto your systems and they tell you if it's a surface virus and it's nothing you need to worry about, or if they truly have access to everything and you need to unplug your systems and get some people in there to figure out what's going on. They take over from the very beginning and they help you navigate the attack. A lot of the endorsement coverages are going to be indemnity policies. So they aren't going to have services like this breach coach. If you are affected with a ransomware attack and you call your endorsement coverage provider, they're going to say, good luck with that. We wish you all the best, but let us know what it costs you at the end of the day, and then we will pay you back up to our policy limits. They're not going to provide you with any of the services that are offered on a monoline policy. So the services are incredibly important, but as we go to the next slide, you're going to see the coverages are a great way. Endorsement carriers are saying they are offering cyber coverage, but aren't really offering much in terms of coverage. So this first example we have is what I would actually consider to be a pretty good package endorsement for cyber coverage. The reason I say that is because they are offering $100,000 worth of coverage for just about every item. So they are not doing a smoke and mirrors sort of a situation. You're going to see down at the bottom, they're offering $100,000 for cyber extortion for ransomware attacks, which again is where we're seeing that claim activity. And it is policy limits there. So it's not a large enough policy limit, but they are offering policy limits when it comes to cyber extortion. The other area of claim activity is going to be cybercrime. You can see there that they are not including any coverage for cyber crimes, but I still support this endorsement because at least they mention cybercrime. Most endorsements out there are not covering cybercrime, and they're not even putting it on their deck page. They just simply don't mention it, making it incredibly easy to just overlook. The next endorsement example and final endorsement example I have is going to be one that I found to be less desirable. And that is because they are playing that smoke and mirrors game. And Diane, if you want to go to the next slide here, we can show that example. For cyber extortion, you're going to see down at the bottom, they have it sublimited at $10,000, which is nowhere near enough. They have an annual aggregate policy limit of $50,000 here, but they're sublimiting just about every area, much lower than that. So I don't even know how you would get to $50,000 worth of coverage. If you look at this list, you are going to see no mention of cybercrime here. All you are going to see that might be cybercrime related is going to be this misdirected payment fraud with $5,000 worth of coverage. To be honest, I have no idea what misdirected payment fraud is, but there is no mention to the traditional cybercrime terms. There's no mention to cybercrimes at all, just $5,000 for the misdirected payment fraud. That is a quick run through of what we have in terms of recent claim trends, as well as what we're seeing in a lot of the endorsement coverages. Did we have any additional coverages before we hand it over to Melvin for the demo?
There is a question. So there's some confusion. Cybercrime. What is it exactly, opposed to all these other items? Aren't they all rolled up into that?
Yes, and technically ransomware is a cybercrime, but in cyber insurance, it's thought about differently. Cybercrime is just the blanket term that is described for people being tricked out of their money. A few slides ago, we had the definitions of 4 different insuring agreements and what specifically it is covered. Those 4 things break down to cybercrime. Yeah, they're right there. These are the 4 insuring agreements that we typically see in cybercrimes, and I use the broad category that is cybercrime.
So that was the last question that we have. And Alec, you did a fantastic job there. That's a lot. And again, what's very interesting is no matter how small the business, how large the business, just how much there is that can accumulate in that ransom. It's almost mind-boggling. And how easy it is for these threat actors to get in at a very simple thing this week. In fact, the person that had an email that came from me, looked like it came from me, is on the call today. And it actually looked like something I would say. It said something along the lines of, I get very sentimental when I see these pictures. And there was a link there to click. And luckily, my coworker looked, and it was a weird Hotmail address. I've never even used Hotmail in my life. And it was signed weird, like my full name, and I don't usually do that with my friends, but just something that simple, and Lord knows, what that click would have led to, let alone how many people that might have gone out to because of them getting in somehow to see what I do. That threat actor again at work.
Absolutely, and that's why we are seeing so much growth when it comes to these cyber crimes, and there's no longer any typos in these emails, and they are a lot more believable, and they can just utilize technology like ChatGPT to help create a very good scheme that's hard to identify. And we don't have a way right now to stop it. So we're going to continue to see the growth in these cyber crimes until somebody figures out a way to stop it.
thank goodness for our insurance marketplace that helps us with these. So Alec, again, great job. We're going to go ahead and move into our Affinity Advisors quoting platform. I'd like to welcome Melvin. And Melvin, I'm going to turn the screen over to you to bring up the quoting engine.
All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
All right. Excellent. So we're going to talk through just a quick run through of quoting through the Arlington Roe Affinity Advisors platform. I do want to call out that we are working in a demo environment. And while it should work exactly like the live environment, technology is grand and sometimes it doesn't cooperate. So if anything happens, I'll point that out. With the Affinity Advisors portal, you can quote cyber liability, tech E&O, professional liability, and management liability. With management liability, they're currently offering D&O and EPL with crime and fiduciary to be added by the end of the year. You're also able to get quotes with admitted and non-admitted options. Some of the carriers that we currently have in the portal, we have Arch, At Bay, Beasley, Coalition, CFC, Corvus, Counterpart, Cowbell, a lot of C's there, Alpha, and then TMHCC, with more options that can be added in the future. A big win in this partnership with Affinity is bringing access to Beasley's BDR product into the portal. Beasley is one of our core carrier partners, and you can reach out to your brokers directly to quote several other lines with Beasley, including tech, A&E, and D&O, as well as several others. So getting into the actual portal, once you get logged in, this is kind of the landing screen that you're going to see. It's going to have a list of your current policy holders, what the account status is, and you can look at separating it by status. You can search, you can separate it by state. A couple of things I like to point out on this page. Number one is the copy application link. This is a link that you can send directly to your insured to complete without needing a login. As an agent, you would need, your login to be able to run your quotes and everything. But this is an easy way to get the application to your insured to limit the amount of information that you're having to enter. This one down here, I like to point out, this chat feature, in a world where every chat seems to be AI, when you use this one, you're actually going to be connecting with a person that's going to be able to assist you in any issues that you may experience during the quoting and binding process. So we're going to dive right in and take a look. This is one that I previously put in, but we're just going to go to the quote screen. So to obtain a quote, you're going to need to put in your insured's information. It's 11 data points to be entered in. You're going to want to put in their NAICS code, as well as select if they're involved in any engaged industries. You have these options in here. None apply. Go ahead and hit that and confirm. Down here, you can put in your insured's contact information. If you don't have it readily available, you can easily put your information in as well, and then just go ahead and click next. So on the carrier and coverage selection, you again see that chat and that share application form. You still have the opportunity to do that, but it's where you can select your carriers. We mentioned the carriers earlier, but giving you kind of a preview of some of the admitted and non-admitted options. So we're going to go ahead and select a couple of these here. All right. And then we'll hit save. And we're going to do cyber. Obviously, that's what the presentation's about. But we do offer, like I said, tech E&O, professional liability, and E&O and EPLI. In the demo environment, one of them is missing, but it is available in the live environment. So moving on. Once you get to this point, you're going to need to put in your effective date, your desired limits, and then your deductible. The 12-question info here is already pre-populated for you. You can change responses, obviously, based on your insured's application, but everything is pre-filled out for you. So all you have to do is click I agree, and then we'll hit let's go. So pretty quickly, it's going to start to return quotes back from your selected carriers. I will point out that even though we selected $1 million limits with, I believe it was a $5,000 retention, you'll see some different options come back based on what carriers are willing to offer. So here we've got $1 million with 2,500 retention. We've got 10,000, 1,000. So you have options, to present to your insured. It does give a breakdown of premium and taxes and fees. You can go into a more detailed look here. You can scroll down and kind of see a side-by-side comparison of some of the third-party and first-party coverages, and that'll translate over into the quote proposal that you can generate as well. So if you want, let's say, you're interested in Coalition, Cowbell, and TMHCC, just going to add these guys to the proposal. That's going to populate up here, download proposal with selected carriers. Just hit download. So you'll have a proposal with broker agent name. It'll have the insured's information. And then it's just a side-by-side comparison, like we saw on the previous screen, that you can take with you to meet with that insured or remotely present to them, that gives them a breakdown of these coverages. It also includes a coverage glossary, just some information for them to use during that selling portion, as well as a cyber FAQ to use as well. Moving back into the portal, once your insured has decided what option they want to move forward with, you would just hit request bind. It's going to need you to drag and drop the signed application into here, hit request bind. It's going to go to your broker that's assigned to you for approval. And then once the binder and policy starts coming in, those will come to you directly from your broker. On top of just making the proposal up here, you do have the option to get documents specifically for each carrier. So if you really want to look just at Coalition's quote, their cyber risk assessment, any of those items you can. I'm not going to click on them because that's one of the things in the demo environment that will take us nowhere. But I mean, that's just a quick run through of the process for quoting here. When we wrap up and Diane sends out the recap, she will include a link to my Microsoft bookings. Anybody that wants to schedule a one-on-one, go a little bit more in depth, even run through live quoting, we can definitely schedule time to do that. And then, those interested in obtaining login credentials for the portal to be able to use this, you can reach out to me by email or call. It's a very simple process to get you signed up and associated with the broker that you work with most frequently at Arlington Roe. And we will be able to get you taken care of.
I see Jim Rowe, our CEO, is on the call today. And Jim, I made you presenter. If you want to unmute your mic, you can ask a question.
Hey, Melvin, great information. I'm looking at 5 different indications or quotes. Are those bindable quotes?
Yes, sir. They are bindable. Yep.
And so I'm an agent that I'm not as aware about cyber. I don't sell that much. You give me 5 different options and they are all over the place. Can I call you or somebody else and get your advice on which one I should offer to my client?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach out to your broker, like I said, that you're most used to dealing with, and they can certainly help you with that process.
Okay, and make it less confusing.
Definitely.
Good.
Is there a proposal on this? I see that, attach a proposal, add to the proposal. Can you open one of those?
From each individual carrier or the combined one?
Combine's okay, or pick one. Yeah, can we just scroll through that again a little bit?
Yep.
So it does the side by side.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
If you're the agent, the side by side's really good there to show the limits. But to Jim's point, again, if you're selling auto, home, and small business all day long, and this is something new, it would be really good to talk to you or one of the brokers to explain this in more detail. While it looks great, we want to help our agents with the story selling. And I love it. It's very easy to use. Alec did a fantastic job at the beginning of the presentation with plenty of stories there to do story selling. But I really like this rating engine that it does these side by sides like this. Does a single one look the same? Do you have the Beasley one?
Let's see.
Beasley's one of our key core carriers here in Arlington. We do a lot of business with them, and this is a good company to highlight. Not that they're not all good, but is that on there?
Back, I don't think when I went through, I actually clicked on Beasley. So give me 1 second. We'll run it through again.
There's one. Yeah.
Yep. I think I stopped one short.
Okay, that's fine. And the reason I wanted to see it, I just wanted to see what it, just one looks like. Does it look like the same as the side by side? What does that look like?
Sure.
You can tell I've been an agent, Melvin. I'm thinking, got the agent hat on today here.
All right. So speaking of Beasley, adding that in, it comes back with the best rate out of the bunch. So we can take a look at their documents. You can look at their quote packet. Now, this is one of those things, it may or may not work because we're in the demo environment. Yeah. Unfortunately, it won't pull the full quote pack. But certainly, when you look at it, we were looking for $1 million limits with $5,000 retention. That's what they delivered. And then you can compare and contrast down below.
Hugely competitive. Maybe what we could do in the follow-up and a thank you out to our agents, you could do that printout and I could attach it as a sample. Is that a good idea?
Sure.
Okay. You guys did a fantastic job. I wanted to share a couple of things with our agents before we say goodbye today. So the Francis Roe Center here at Arlington Roe is a center where we look to really help with education, not only of our associates and their professional development, but to help all of you as agents. And we have several upcoming sessions yet in November and December. Our highlight in December will be Coffee Talk with the Rose. And Jim, I guess I'm sucking up since you're on here today, but it's one of those annual things that we look forward to. We have both Andy and Patrick joining Jim Rowe to talk about the marketplace and things that we might see coming up in 2026. So you don't want to miss out on that. And then you can see several other sessions here throughout November and December. If you're not new to us and you just want a refresher update beyond what you heard today, we have an onboarding and a get to know Arlington Roe session every month. We have one in November and December. And then we're going to be doing aviation. So again, if you're an agent on the call and it's something that you don't deal with every day, similar to what you heard today with cyber, this is a good time to listen in and hear from the experts on cyber, on aviation. So with that, I want to thank our presenters again today, both Alec and Melvin. Great job. A lot of good information here. Alec, before we close out today, do you have any final closing thoughts?
I don't really think I have any final closing thoughts. Melvin already mentioned it, but if you're interested in getting set up with Affinity, the email that Diane sends out is going to include a link to schedule time with Melvin, or just simply reach out to Melvin or myself and we'll get you set up.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Love it. Love that ease of doing business. So with that, there are no more questions. I'd like to thank our Arlington Roe associates and our Arlington Roe partner agents. For those of you here in Indiana, if you're a licensed agent and you're attending the Big I next week, I wanted to mention you could learn more about cyber there. Sonia Townsend, our senior broker here at Arlington Roe, will be teaching a 1.5-hour CE class on Monday afternoon. So thank you again for joining us, and this will conclude our session of the Francis Roe Center for Professional Growth.